and the time that we are here. Today is Jane Elliott. If you don't know, you better ask somebody. You better ask Google, ask Siri. Jane Elliott, 6 a.m., maybe 5:55, but Jane Elliott, you will hear this amazing woman. Oh my gosh. Tell somebody to tell somebody. Currently, it is cold. I don't know what, it's 26 degrees outside. We're looking at a high of 41, low of 34, cloudy throughout the day. Wednesday, high of 44, low of 43, rain throughout the day. Thursday, rain and showers and wind, high of 57, low of 35. Friday, high of 39, low of 23, partly cloudy and wind. And we're looking Saturday, some more clouds and rain and wind. And Sunday, hopefully, possibly, mostly sunny, high of 47, low of 34. As far as traffic is concerned, you do not have the green light. Get to where you need to be. Our wife is already down to 16 miles an hour. There's a little pocket. An accident has been reported on Route 9 east at Hammond Street, and that's taking a toll on the rest of Route 9, MA9 east, and that they are down to 22 miles an hour. We have the Braintree-Quincy split at 21 miles an hour. If you're coming from the Cape, they're at 55. If you're coming from Braintree, they're at 41. Get to where you need to be. As far as news is concerned, how many of us have went ahead and turned on, you lost your phone and you go and seek and search for it, and it says it's at 614 Blue Hill Ave. So you're like, well, let me just go to 614 Blue Hill Ave and see who has my phone. Yeah, that's what happened to an Alabama man, 23 years old, who was shot and killed in a church parking lot after trying to use the app to track his stolen cell phone. The 23-year-old Alabama man was killed after trying to use an app to track down his stolen cell phone. Fairfield, when I tell you I know where Fairfield is, I used to get my curry chicken, my oxtail in Fairfield. I know exactly where Fairfield is. Police said that he was gunned down in the parking lot of a church. Authorities believe the man was tracking a cell phone that was stolen during an earlier car break-in, which led him to the suspected gunman. Wow. When I tell you, my friend just lost her cell phone and was like, Tayla, come with me to go. I was like, listen, I'm not losing my life. And I was just joking. I swear, I was just joking. She ended up getting a whole nother phone, but can you imagine? I know you have my cell phone. Give it up. Pew, pew. I could not. So I know there's an app for that, but you might want to just contact the police and leave that into their hands because it's not worth it. Bernie Sanders was at UMass Amherst. Before Hillary called me, I'm going to just leave it right there. We're just going to leave it right there. Okay, so you remember we talked about the MBTA and the fact that the MBTA had two employees that made over $300,000 in 1 year. MBTA audits show that the substandard overtime practices, he confirmed his own overtime. There was no supervisor. There was no one saying, hey, we need you. He said, I think I'm going to go to work today. As far as the MBTA is concerned, they said that they don't have a system in place. Right now, they don't have a system in place for an authority or a supervisor or somebody to call these men, because there's two of them, who made over $300,000. There's nobody. So they just go to work all the time, all day, every day. 30%, 1 in every 3 people, 30% of their employees earned more than $100,000 last year. Where the MBTA at? I think I am in the wrong business. Shout out to all the MBTA workers that are currently listening. And shout out to Francois from New York. Francois called in earlier and he laid it on me. He was like, let me give you some facts. I love your guest, but let me just give you these facts. And Francois actually created a topic that we'll be discussing next month, hopefully on Monday, if everything works out. On Monday, the MBTA released additional positive news about its finances. Brian Shortsleeve, the MBTA's chief administrator, said that the agency was able to shrink its projected deficit for 2016 fiscal year by about $75 million to $95 million. What does that mean? About $69 million came from cost saving strategies, such as about 25 from lower energy costs. I don't even know what that means. About. Because if I paid about $1 to get on the bus, they're going to be asking me for some more money, right? Most likely. A, 1 in every 3 people make over $100,000 on the MBTA. I think I'm in the wrong business. How about you? Mystery high-pitched noises that have been plaguing an Oregon town have left experts, not the citizens, not everyday people, but experts baffled. Residents in Forest Grove had complained of hearing a loud, shrilling noise. They said that they have heard them for weeks on end at all times of the day. The town officials say they are not coming from gas lines or utility works, while an auto expert says he is too baffled by the high-pitched noises. There is no word on what this noise is. I will go ahead and post that on the Wake Up with Tayla Andre page, and this is not the first time, because there was at one time, I think this was about 3 years ago. I'll find it and I'll post it for you guys. But it was Switzerland, it was Britain, parts of China, parts of the United States, where they heard like bells tolling, and everybody was like, it's the end of the world. Jesus is coming. I have no idea. I don't know what the answers are, Sway, but I can imagine how scary that may be. And all you hear is just noises. In the Bible, they do talk about the horns that you can hear from east to west. I would be scared out of my mind. And we're in the last of days. Yes, I truly believe that. And the most messed up thing about it is, if I tell you you're going to get into a car accident today, what are you going to do? What are you most likely going to do? Be cautious and do everything in your ability to pay attention to what's going on in front of you, behind you, on the side of you, to make sure you don't get into that car accident, right? If we have a book that goes page by page of what's going to happen, why exactly are we not paying attention? Again, common sense is not that common, but I've always thought about that. Even as a little kid, when I never even understood religion, even as an adult, I still don't understand religion. But if we have a book that tells us what's going to happen, why wouldn't we do everything in our power to make sure these things don't take place? I know Harrison's about to call me. Well, Tayla. Rudy Giuliani says Trump is smarter than he looks as the Donald consults with the former NYC mayor and other kitchen cabinet advisors. Once upon a time, I had a lot of respect for Rudy Giuliani. Have you ever heard Donald Trump speak? No, I mean really, not sound bites, but actually heard him speak. He's smarter than he looks. There's a meme. I'll go ahead and find it for you. And it goes down the list of things that Trump has completely failed at. It's like 16 marriages, XYZ business, the airlines, a whole list of things he's failed at. But he's smarter than he looks. Rudy Giuliani. Okay. Girls are using hashtag support the puff. And for those who don't know what a hashtag is, that's the # on your phone. Support the puff after students threatened with suspension for wearing natural hair. Now, this isn't the first time we've heard stories like this. This is not probably going to be the last. We've also heard people who worked in the corporate world who were told that they had to do something with their hair. Well, baby, this is my hair in its normal state, in its natural state. What do you want me to do with it? Girls all over Instagram are hashtagging support the puff after a high schooler in the Bahamas was suspended for wearing her hair in its natural form, an afro. The school's principal told reports that the girl was reprimanded because her hair looked untidy and unkept, but her mother does not agree. She took to Facebook to express her outrage that her daughter was punished for having natural hair, pointing out that her daughter's hair does not affect her brain. The controversy sparked a hashtag that is now going viral, support the puff. And if you go ahead on Twitter, Instagram, and hashtag support the puff, you'll find a whole lot of women, not just girls, women as well. How many of us, listen, if I cut my hair right now, I'm going to be supporting the puff too, because I look like Michael Jackson back in the 80s when my hair is cut. Ray Allen is opening an organic fast food spot in South Miami. Shout out to him. Yes, he's best known for his smooth jump shot, but next month it may be fruit smoothies and shots of wheatgrass. Hold on, pause. Did you know one shot of wheatgrass? I'm not going to name the company that currently has wheatgrass shots in Boston because they don't pay us, but one shot of wheatgrass is equivalent to 3 pounds of greens. Yeah, absolutely. So if you're lacking any type of fiber in your life, if you're lacking any type of that monster green, please we'll find out whether or not they want to sponsor the show so I can tell you where they are. But they have amazing wheatgrass shots, daily fresh wheatgrass. They actually cut it in front of you and then squeeze it. I have no idea. It takes a whole lot of wheatgrass to make one shot, though. But they also have ginger shots, carrot shots, and little did I know that all these fruits and vegetables, these shots are equivalent to a week's worth of vegetables. And I say a week's worth because most of us don't get the daily suggested amount in the first place. Okay, unpause. Shots of wheatgrass that put Ray Allen back in Miami spotlight. In March, the former Heat superstar, two-time NBA champion, and actor is opening up Grown, an organic fast food restaurant that promises to shake up the way we think about eating healthy. Allen told reports that the idea came from dealing with his 9-year-old son battle with type 1 diabetes and the struggles he and his wife found getting the right nutrient-rich food for the child. I'm so excited. I am so excited. How many of us are not eating properly? How many of us give our children 1s and 5s and 10s and send them to the corner store with nothing but dead food? And I said dead food because it's not like it's alive. It's not recently picked. It wasn't grown. They're in bags and cans and canisters. We're not feeding our children the nutrients that they need nor deserve. Here in the city, if you go anywhere past Blue Hill and Columbia Road, you live in a food desert. From Blue Hill and Columbia all the way down till you get to Milton. Please tell me where you can find fresh fruits on a regular basis outside of the man in the truck. We live in a food desert. What does that mean? That means that we don't have access to fresh fruits and vegetables unless you go to Baby Nats. And still, if you look at the stickers, remember the stickers tell you a lot of where that fruit or vegetable came from, whether it was organically grown, conventionally grown, heirloom, which means that it came from non-genetically modified. These are things that we have to pay attention to. These are things that we have to be mindful of, but we are not. So shout out to Ray Allen. Shout out to Grown. It will have a drive-through, and anybody who's struggling with type 1 diabetes, maybe this is something you need to look into. Some wheatgrass. The 10-year-old Naeem Hudson has been selected mayor for the day. If you are on Instagram or Twitter, this young man is absolutely amazing. Naeem Hudson was once again shown his leadership qualities as he interviewed Orange, New Jersey Mayor Dwayne D. Warren. Naeem conducted a tour of the HUBB Community Empowerment Center. Listen, long story short, he's a Chico. He definitely is a Chico. He interviews everybody. He has motivational talks on motivational cloths. He's dope. He's absolutely amazing. He's a young man. How old is he? 10 years old. And he's been doing this for about 3 years now. So I'll go ahead and post it on the Wake Up with Tayla Andre page. He's amazing. And if I went ahead and made Anari, because Anari has an Instagram, I was like, Anari, you need to follow him. And he's like, Mommy, did you know? Did you know? So don't think for a second that your children shouldn't be on social media. Just be mindful of who they're following on social media and play an active role in that, as far as suggesting people they should follow, deleting people that they shouldn't be following. I'll be in his phone all day. No problem with it. In other news, I think we should just pop him. Connecticut officer caught threatening an unconscious man on video. The new footage new video footage has emerged of the moments leading up to the suspension of 2 Connecticut officers after one of them repeatedly threatened an unconscious man. The officers, John Slepsky and John Slezak, were detained and unidentified. They found a man who was unconscious on the side of the road. Slepsky can be heard immediately calling the man an effing a-hole and saying, "I think we ought to just effing pop him. I think we should just pop him." Czak responded that the man was fine and just wants a ride to the hospital. "Yeah, I know," Slepsky responded, "an effing bag." You can go ahead and fill in the blanks. The two then discussed using pepper spray on the man, though none was used according to the footage. This is disturbing. This is in Connecticut. Now, a lot of these stories that we read take place in Texas, take place in Florida, somewhere in South Carolina. And we think because we're in the North that we are so far removed from this ignorance. And as you will hear Jane speaking on it, it's not white privilege, it's white ignorance. And it's disgusting. It's totally disgusting. And we are not removed. This is Connecticut. How many of y'all were in Connecticut over the past 6 months? That could have been you. Like, I just want you to wake up and realize that just because you live in the city, just because you live in liberal Massachusetts, does not make you free and clear from any of this behavior. The man was unconscious. He didn't do anything. He didn't say anything. He was unconscious. We should just pop him. For what? This and more, I'll post on the Wake Up with Tayla Andre page. You can come to your own conclusion, but it is what it is. A high school student in Baltimore was recently denied a spot in his senior talent show because he wrote a poem addressing police brutality and institutionalized racism. Marcus Shaw and his friend Zahana Bryant attended the Johns Hopkins Motto UN conference in Baltimore this past weekend in hopes of spreading the word. We are trying to spread the word about this because Marcus is one of the top in his class and has applied to several Ivy League schools this year. Bryant writes to reports, "This year, when the senior talent show was open for auditions, I auditioned my poem that was published in the Townsend High School's literary magazine. The principal declined the admission to the performance. She called it offensive and attack on police. During the meeting to review the poem, she could not articulate which lines were offensive, but instead invited Townsend, the school resource officer, into her office. They both explained to the young man that the poem could not be performed at the senior talent show because of what they described as an overall offensive tone of the poem. Shaw wrote in an email that he is completely baffled that something that is going on across the country can't be addressed at a talent show. But I bet you, I can almost guarantee you, there's some Lil Wayne, Rich Homie Quan song that's being all types of remade and resung and somebody twerking and everything else. But the fact that I can't address what's going on in our society, that's crazy to me. We have 2 callers on the line, 617-282-0062. Good rising, caller, you're live.
Good morning. Good rising to you, Tim.
Good rising to you, darling.
My name is Sergio Hebra. I'm not afraid to share my name.
Hello, how are you, darling? We follow each other on Facebook.
Well, yes, we do. But what I wanted to say, and I'm not embarrassed to say, but be very proud and very loud to say, because I'm a father, I have a son, I have a daughter, and of course, not because I'm a parent, but it's because I'm a human being. And listening to this kind of stuff is not just the first time. I mean, coming from you, it's not to say that it's nullifying because it's so saturated on media when it comes to Channel 7, Channel 4, Channel 5 News, NECN, CNN, and all the other news channels. How low, my question to society is this. How low have we become in humankind that we can't see that getting rid of or harming somebody who is unconscious or unable to defend themselves is just morally wrong, completely morally wrong in our compass, in our human compass. Like, it's so out of the earth, out of this universe wrong. There's no way to categorize how unjustified it is. Like, where did we go wrong in being humane? Are we not human anymore? I mean, is there any, like, human effect left inside of us as individuals? And, you know, racism is rearing its ugly head so much that people are so super sensitive. I mean, what you're saying about this talent show thing, why can't people discuss things that are in a sensitive nature in higher regard, in honor, and with respect? We don't respect each other as human beings anymore. And it's sad, because I have to leave this world to my daughter and to my son, and every parent out here has to leave this world to their children. And it's not getting fixed any faster. Where are we? On what level are we as human beings that we can't care for one another and love one another?
Good question. I don't have the answer, Sway, but, you know, I think the only thing that comes to mind right now is, I'm standing at the man in the mirror. Like, we can only have control and authority over self. We can't dictate what others do. And as long as we teach our children rights and wrongs and how to treat others, we can't worry about what goes on in other people's homes and other people's minds. We can't worry about what takes place outside of our own home. So as long as you are teaching your children, listen, we could butt all day. We could, because you don't think that it bothers me when I read this story 2 days ago? You don't think it bothers the heck out of me that it's not bothering a whole bunch of parents out here? It bothers a lot of people, but we can only do what we can do. And right now, that's teaching our children the difference between right and wrong, in hopes that they will, what's the Bible say? Teach the children in which ways that they should go, and when they get older, they won't depart from it. That's the only thing we can hope and pray for.
Right. But also, you said a mouthful, but I'll say this one last thing. Lead by example. We are supposed to be these children's greatest leaders. Black History Month is not just about Martin Luther King and Malcolm X and all the great Black inventors, Harriet Tubman, and everybody who contributed to the prestige of African Americans. But it's also us, the little people, the people without names, the people who are not in the limelight, the people who are not famous, the Black community as a whole itself. We are the heroes. The parents are the heroes. If we cannot lead these children and show them what love really looks like and the human effect in being humane towards each other with love, then where have we gone wrong?
I totally agree. Thank you, baby. Love and appreciate you. Hope you have an awesome day today. We have another caller on the line, 617-282-0062. Good rising, caller, you're live.
Good morning, how are you doing? I actually saw that story online, but to the call previously, I don't know why people are shocked. This country was founded on violence. We killed a generation of Native Americans. I mean, back in the early 1900s, a gang fight, and this is when the white boys were the thugs before they became cops. A gang fight had like 300 members. Like, if you read some of those books, he said they were picking up heads and body parts off the streets of New York when they had fights. Martin Scorsese did a movie of Gangs of New York, and he said that was kind of cleaned up some because it would have been too graphic. But to me, I don't know why our people are shocked. This is their nature. And the only reason why it continues, it will continue to happen, is because we don't have the answer.
He believes the white man is the devil. So I apologize to anybody who is Caucasian that's currently listening. I give everybody their ability to speak their opinion because I am afforded my own opinion.
white folks don't like them either. But if you mess with one of them, it will be on and popping. But as long as you're going to be nonviolent and pray and march, you're going to continue to be a victim. Only stupid people keep doing the same thing over and over, expect different results. But it's amazing. We'll fight each other. That kills me. We'll fight each other. We'll cuss each other out. You can go to YouTube and see black people fighting all day with each other. But as soon as the white man pulls them over, all of a sudden they all become a bunch of punks. Like, I never understood that.
Well, I thank you. I love you. I appreciate you. You got the phone lines going crazy right now. And all I'm trying to do is hear Jane Elliott. So I'm not going to take the next call. What I am going to do is I'm going to inform you that one Flint, Michigan resident who prided himself on not drinking a lot of water and being healthy has now has a blood lead level that is 5 times what is considered toxic. What is considered toxic? 5 times what is considered toxic. So this man who prides himself on not drinking a lot of the water, prides himself on being healthy, has a blood lead level that is 5 times what is considered toxic. Do you hear me? There is Billions in Change. There's a documentary called Billions in Change. If you know me, you know that I love a good documentary. In this documentary, Billions in Change, this young man talks about creating this water filter that can filter ocean water. This is a real thing. This is not a prototype. It's a real thing. It exists. Why on earth is this not in Flint, Michigan? Billions in Change. Watch the documentary. For the past 6 months, Aaron Stinson had suffered from excessive sweating, fatigue, severe headaches, among other symptoms that crept up out of nowhere. I consume a lot of water, he told reports. But I've been drinking water that I believed was safe. I thought it was pure for my body. It's hard to really express how I feel because I'm still trying to wrap my brain around it. My blood is tainted with lead. Pause. In the state of Massachusetts, as a real estate agent, I can say that I have a real estate license. As a real estate agent, we learn about lead. We learn about lead levels in blood. We learn about how not only do I have to inform and you have to give consent that you want to live in this house, but we have to sit down and fill out a slew of papers that you know and are aware that you are purchasing a home with lead in it. Why on earth are we still allowing people? This man said he's been on top of this. He's been on top of it. He thought he was drinking the purest, cleanest water. 5 times the toxic level is where his blood is at right now. And if this is what this man is, 5 times the toxic level, can you imagine those babies? Let's go back to the 10 people that died in Flint, Michigan. And I'm trying to wrap my head around how the governor is still the damn governor. Governor? With that being said, it is currently 6 o'clock, and if you listen to the Wake Up with Tayla Andre show here on Big City 101.3 FM, you know that 6 o'clock is our power hour. Today is the day that the Lord hath made. I am rejoicing and being glad in it with my 102.17 fever. But Nana said you got to do what you got to do, so that's exactly what we're going to do. One of the questions I asked Miss Elliott was, why? Why did you start trying to make white people feel the way that blacks, the way that gays, the way that lesbians feel? Why did you dedicate your entire life to making the majority feel like the minority? This was Jane's answer, and I do apologize because I have to go in and give you some background. I'm not going to tell you who Jane is because if you looked up the blue eye, brown eye exercise, you would know exactly who she is. She said, I care about blacks because there is only one race, and blacks are my brothers and sisters. And by the gods of war, no one has the right to enslave or abuse my relatives. What hurts another human being hurts me. Whether or not it happens to me directly, that may not be the answer you're looking for. But I learned long ago not to do to another person what that person wouldn't want done to him or her. I honestly believe that Blacks don't want to be treated as we have treated them for nearly 400 years in this country. I do not believe that they owe white folks any gratitude for being brought here and mistreated all these centuries. A month for Black history? Think of it. 11 months for white history, and Blacks were the first modern human beings to evolve on this earth. There is something very wrong with this plan. And what's wrong is ignorance. Read Sussman's book, The Myth of Race, and never again believe in the myth of a master race composed of white people. I care about Blacks because I am an educator, and it is my job to lead people out of ignorance of racism if we're ever going to have a truly civilized society. Neither gender nor color is an indicator of worth or intelligence. Jane Elliott has one of the biggest personalities. She's 83 years old. I love her. I appreciate her. I do have to warn you that this is a pre-recorded call, and in the question I asked her about teaching and why she felt it was so detrimental to teach those minorities, those majorities, what it felt like to be a minority. And this is the conversation that I had with Miss Jane Elliott.
Right now, in Oregon and some other, I think Minnesota, the students are no longer celebrating Columbus Day. They are celebrating.
This is my independent strategy.
Can we talk about technical difficulties? It's a good thing I have a backup. Hallelujah. So give me 5 seconds and here you go, baby.
Right now, in Oregon and some other, I think Minnesota, the students are no longer celebrating Columbus Day. They are celebrating Indigenous Persons Day on Columbus Day. Is that progress? I think it is.
I think this is amazing. That was actually a story that we covered around Thanksgiving. But it's progress, Jane. When we have books like Jim Lowen, Lies My Teacher Told Me.
It's going to get better. This is a pre-recorded call.
Which makes mention to the markers that are filled with lies. How can we...
Absolutely. And when you encourage teachers to read books like Alexander's and The New Jim Crow, that book ought to be on every teacher's shelf and in every teacher's mind. And every teacher who deals with students at any level of any age ought to know how to identify and teach the dyslexic child of whatever age to read. Many of the people who are in prison in this country today, the males, most of them are dyslexic males who couldn't succeed in the classroom because the teachers didn't know how to teach to their special needs. And these aren't remedial students. These are students who are very, very bright
Jane
and
Elliott.
who could learn to read if teachers would teach them the way dyslexic students have to be taught. The whole thing is, it's all about education. We've spent millions of dollars on education and don't educate. We indoctrinate, but we don't educate. And those males, and 4 out of 5 dyslexics are males. And that means 4 out of 5 dyslexics, 4 out of 5 males of whatever color. And if those kids don't learn to read, they start to act out. One would rather be called a bad boy than a dumb boy. So they start to act out. They don't learn to read. They get thrown out of school, or they drop out of school because they are so frustrated. They get on the street. They get involved with the criminal justice system. And criminal justice is not just.
I love her.
Make no mistake about that. Particularly when you're talking about dyslexic males. The first thing we have to do is teach them how to read. But before we can do that, we have to learn how to teach them how to read. And you do not learn that in most education courses in colleges in the United States. Now, what was your question? I'm sorry. I get off the subject because the topic of dyslexia affects every single person in the United States. Because if the policeman is dyslexic and does the wrong thing, it may be because he did the last thing he heard instead of doing the whole thing that he heard. If your bus driver is dyslexic, you may have several little fender benders because It's difficult for him to remember it in a state of confusion, which is right and which is left. You have to work with these folks before you realize what a great effect it has on what happens in this country. What was your second question? I can't hear you.
It's gonna fix up.
Right now, because I was not aware of Jane. Okay, first and foremost, these are the thoughts that are going through my mind. First is the fact that
It's gonna fix up, I promise.
we have the school to prison pipeline. And if
I'm not hearing you. You're not coming through. Is your mouth close to the telephone?
we have the school to prison pipeline, can you hear me now? So with the school to prison pipeline, we have many young boys, Black, African American, Latino boys, ending up in jail, and you're attributing this to a simple learning disorder, something that could be easily taught to teachers, but not, I feel like nothing's being.
It's not a learning disorder. It's a learning difference. It's a learning difference, and if 20 to 30% of the population suffers from that learning difference, then it ought to be a requirement that every teacher, every educator that is paid by public taxes who goes into a classroom needs to know exactly how to teach those dyslexic people. When you go into a classroom, if you watch what happens in the classroom and you see these kids acting out, you know immediately. You don't have to spend much time with them before you realize what's going on. They're the kids who, when the students in the film The Eye of the Storm. Have you seen the film The Eye of the Storm?
Of course I have, absolutely.
Okay, all 16 of those kids are moderately to severely dyslexic. Now think about that. They came into my classroom reading at the upper first grade level. They left my class. I had been told by the principal, these kids are nothing but duds, pass them on and get them out of here. They're never going to amount to anything anyway. They aren't going to learn to read, Mrs. Elliott. I know you get upset when students in your classroom don't learn to read. These kids aren't going to learn to read. Don't get upset by it. He gave me 16 students who said he thought couldn't learn to read because their previous teachers hadn't taught them how to read. I took a course a number of years ago in how to teach the dyslexic child. You use Orton, Gillingham, phonics. And I used that with those kids from the first day they came into my classroom, and by the time they left my classroom, they had gained from 3 to 5 years of reading ability in a 9-month period. Now, 3 of those kids had been identified by the Adult Crippled Children's Clinic as being mentally retarded. None of them were mentally retarded. You can't gain from 3 to 5 years reading ability in a single year if you're retarded. The average is gained 9 months of reading ability and 9 months of work. Those kids gained years of reading ability. There was not a retarded child in that room. They were all children who were moderately to severely dyslexic. And when on the first day of school, I put the word on the board, and I said, what is that? Some of them said no, some of them said on, some of them said nothing. Dyslexic children do not see words the way they're written, and they do not hear words the way they're said. So that when you say to a student, turn to page 37 and look at the second paragraph, you might as well be saying, "'Twas brillig and the slithy trove did gyre and gimble and belay," because he does not hear words the way they're said in the first place, and in the second place, he's now under a stressful situation where he's trying to find the page you want, and he can't do it because he reverses. If it's page 56, he may see 65 in his mind, he may hear 65. So he has to look at the picture on the page of the kid that's next to him, who's really smart and has the right page number invariably. And he'll watch that kid and see what page he's on, and then he'll turn to that page. I've seen it happen over and over and over again.
I think you just described my entire educational career. That was me. No, I'm so serious. That was me. Absolutely. And still to this day, the listeners know, still to this day, I'll take somebody's name and butcher it. And it would just be the 2 letters that are mixed together. And wow.
You transpose letters, you transpose words, you don't hear words the way they're said, and you have to repeat them for yourself in order to be sure that what you are saying.
How many of us are dyslexic?
Said.
Yes, ma'am.
Am I right?
I think you just diagnosed me.
Well, and spell check doesn't do you a whole lot of good.
No.
oftentimes they put the wrong word in when they check your spelling. They put some word in that would make sense to the computer, but that makes no sense at all in your sentence.
Absolutely. You just,
Yeah.
so let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
About,
You want a short answer?
no, not at all. ADHD. How do you feel about ADHD?
I feel that if those students were tested by a classroom teacher who recognizes dyslexia when she sees it, that you would find out that a whole lot of ADHD people are not ADHD. They are dyslexic and nobody understands it. For instance, Todd, one of my third graders, I heard about him in the teacher's lounge from the time he got into kindergarten till the time he came to my room in third grade. He was a brat. He was too active. He was running around the room all the time. He couldn't pay attention to the students. He was just a disorganized mess, and nobody wanted to have him in their classroom. So the first day of school, in walks Todd into my classroom. And I said, well, Todd, you and I are going to have a really good year. And I recognized him. I had looked at his cumulative files, and he had good high scores in math, but low scores in reading and spelling, and I knew what I was dealing with. And I immediately started to treat him and he responded like a dyslexic, and he's brilliant. He graduated from high school, he graduated from college, he's got a terrific job, and he's a fantastic human being. He was not mentally retarded, and he was not ADHD. He was and is and will always be dyslexic.
Is there any cure in dyslexia?
I didn't hear you.
Is there any cure for dyslexia?
No, there isn't a cure, but you don't have to be cured of something that you can learn to cope with. You can't cure dyslexia, but you can learn to cope with it. Thomas Edison learned to cope with it. Einstein learned to cope with it. John F. Kennedy learned to cope with it. Whoopi Goldberg and Danny Glover had learned to cope with it. But they learned to cope with it in spite of their educators, not because of them. Because teachers refuse to admit that there is such a thing as dyslexia. Many of them say that's just a broad term for a whole lot of things, and that's not what's going on here. Well, I'm sorry, but I could go down a list of names that would just shock you. Of names of my students who I heard about in the teacher's lounge, what awful people they were, and within 2 hours of being in my classroom, you could hear their wings rustle when they sat down. Because somebody was saying, look, there's nothing wrong with you. You don't have a learning disability. You don't have a mental disability. You have a specific learning difference, and here's what it is. And I know how to deal with it. And I'm going to help you to become successful in the act of reading, because I know how to do that. And those kids look at me like I'm some kind of a creature from outer space, or they look at me like I'm the witch that everybody has said I am. And those people and learn to read, which is it's just the first 45 minutes I spend with those kids in the reading class. By the end of that 45 minutes, they can spell and write and read 25 to 100 words that they hadn't been able to read, write, or spell the year before.
Talking about dyslexia.
Oh,
Because there's a way to teach the dyslexic child, no matter how old that child is. I have taught a over 50-year-old man to read using Orton Gillingham phonics because he is dyslexic.
I think I'm going to take a journey with the listeners on learning how to cope with my dyslexia.
I think
I think there's a lot of listeners that can definitely identify with what you're saying, and parents that are seeing this in their children and their children being misdiagnosed strictly for the sake of a paycheck or for the school's paycheck. You guys know what I'm talking about as far as the budget is concerned.
Well, it isn't just about money. It's about schools would like to be the finest school in the county. The way to achieve that is pick out a school, go to that school and say, we will bring in a Orton Gillingham trained individual to teach every one of your teachers how to teach these kids, every child can be a reader, how to teach the 20 to 30% of your children who are dyslexic how to read. By the end of this year, you will have the highest reading scores of any school in the county, because all of your children, particularly at this grade level, or from kindergarten to 6th grade, every teacher should know how to teach a dyslexic child effectively. If you want your school to be the best in the county, if you want your school to be, everybody wants to be there, then every teacher in that school, and certainly at the elementary level, should know how to teach the dyslexic child. Because most of those dyslexic children have a father who is dyslexic, slightly or severely dyslexic. And you go to a community where they have a really low economic situation going, and you take a look at the fathers, and most of them are in not very well paying jobs because they can't read. Now think about that. And out of that community, there are little schools around Riceville and in Riceville. In Riceville, you have the problem in Riceville, you have it everywhere. But there were little towns around Riceville which were just, a lot of the people had really low paying jobs and couldn't do better because many of the men in that community were dyslexic. And it is a problem that is passed down through the male gene, and 4 out of 5 dyslexics are boys. And those are the kids who disrupt the classroom and who act out. And they're acting out because they want to get out. And they want to get out because they aren't safe in an environment in which they can never be successful. And they can't be successful in that environment except in math class or in hands-on things. Extremely, extremely successful in hands-on things, but not if they have to read the directions. The wealthy farmer that I taught to read several years ago said he would have gone into the military, but he would have had to fill in the application on site, and he couldn't do it. So he didn't go to the military, he didn't go to college, he just went right, kept on farming and became extremely wealthy.
Huge.
But his wife had to read the newspaper to him. Yes, and when they would travel, and they go out for dinner, when they go out for dinner, he'd hand his wife the menu and say, I left my glasses at home. And she would read the menu to him. When they would travel, she would read the things on the signs in the museums to him. Because he couldn't read them.
Did she know that he couldn't read?
Yes, she knew that he couldn't read. And when he learned to read, she was disturbed by that because she lost the control she had over him. It was really interesting to watch what happened there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, there's a whole other aspect of this thing. And this is an extremely wealthy man. And he got, we can go on and on. What's your next question?
My next question, so for those who don't know, you did the blue eye, brown eye experiment. And in
I
the
never did. Wait. I never did an experiment on my students in my life.
Okay,
I did
I'm sorry.
Or experience. So people use the word experiment because then they can deride and discuss in unpleasant terms the teacher who would experiment with children. The reason I refuse to allow what I do to be called an experiment is because I create a microcosm society in a 3rd grade classroom or a boardroom in a corporation. And I use the same techniques then that we use in society on people of color on a daily basis in this country. Now, if my doing that is an experiment, then what we're doing in this country with people of color and women and gays and lesbians and people who worship differently is an experiment. And it's unethical, and we all put a stop to it. See the difference?
Absolutely.
I absolutely get the difference, and thank you for that clarification. You did an exercise with those students. My question is, why do you think we have not done one of these experiments on our politicians? So our politicians can understand what it's like to not be in that position of power and not have that that white privilege that they currently hold.
Number one, it isn't white privilege that they have, it's a white freedom to be ignorant. They don't have to learn how it feels to be other than where they are, who they are, and what they are. Because they have, white people in this country have the freedom to be ignorant. My number one freedom as a white person is the freedom to be totally ignorant about those who are different from myself. My number 2 freedom is the freedom to deny that I'm ignorant. And my number 3 freedom is the freedom to say to people of color who accuse me of making a racist remark, well, you took it wrong. Or, you just don't understand. Or, why don't you get over it? Or, I wasn't given any special privileges when my people came here. Why should your people be? Have you heard all those questions and all those statements?
Absolutely, yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. That is part of your lifestyle. You have to be expected, you are expected to cope with white ignorance on a daily basis. Now, your white listeners, if you have any, are not going to be happy. You need to understand that. And I understand that. I am getting a lot of flack because I said to Killer Mike, the fact that one has a uterus should not qualify one, make one more qualified to be president of the United States. Now, that came out of a white woman's mouth, and there was no problem with it until it came out of a black man's mouth. And then you saw all the ugly, latent racism and sexism came boiling to the surface because a black man had said that at a college campus. And yet we say there's no racism in this country. Give me a break.
What was your question? I love her.
You answered it. I'd like to ask about Black Lives Matter for a second, and you know, this idea that Black Lives Matter is nothing more but white hate, like anti-white. So it's Black people are unable to have a sense of pride in self while still, you know, being a part of the community. It's like either or. You're either, you know, Black Lives Matter or all lives matter.
Number one, Black lives have mattered negatively in this country for 400 years. When we bought slaves from England who had been stolen from Africa. We transported them to this country and used them to build the South. Make no mistake about that. They were extremely important in growing cotton and harvesting cotton and moving cotton. And they have been extremely important in all kinds of manufacturing in this country. And when we need to go to war, they are extremely important in that we can produce lots of black fodder for our war machine. Black lives have mattered negatively. They are now important in the industrial prison complex. Many of the people who are incarcerated in this country today are making things for corporations, which make it, we can send our work into prisons to be done. It's cheaper than sending it overseas and takes a lot less time and a lot less transportation. Black males and white males in prison are, in fact, many of them there for very minor offenses because of President Clinton's policy, which he signed into law.
President Clinton.
Which put a whole lot of males in prison. Three strikes and you're out. That has had a horrible effect on the black male community in this country. And you need to be aware of that. And if you haven't read Michelle Alexander's The New Jim Crow, you'd ought to get it and read it. Because you're living in a situation in which we have instituted slavery and are teaching the wrong thing about how it came about and whether or not blacks were important in the progress that this country has made. They have been extremely important, but they have been seen as negatives while they were doing it. Black lives have mattered negatively for long enough. It's time to see black people as positive as white people are seen. When those students have been, Ole Miss sat down, those black students, particularly those football players, and said, we're not going to cooperate with this anymore. All of a sudden, black lives mattered. And black behavior mattered. Because the university needed those black bodies on that football field in order to make money. Make no mistake about this. Now, I am not the beloved Jane Elliott. I am the woman who said that the profession of a uterus does not guarantee you that you are going to be a good president. I don't have a whole lot of time for this game playing. And we have played this game long enough now.
Absolutely. Lord have mercy. Yes. How do we eradicate white privilege or white ignorance? How do we...
You stop calling it white privilege. That isn't what it is. People who are accused of having white privilege, inside themselves, in the back of their heads where they won't admit it, they're thinking, yeah, I like privilege. Why did I give that up? That's one of our freedoms. It's the freedom to be ignorant. You have to educate people, and it takes somebody like Killer Mike, or like that fantastic thing that they did on the Grammys, the prison thing. Something like that makes white people straighten up and pay attention.
So you stand in solidarity with Kendrick Lamar.
I stand in solidarity with people who use a little bit of common sense in their daily life, and who do not necessarily, we say the golden rule: do unto others as you would have others do unto you. We white people do not treat people of color the way we want to be treated. Make no mistake about that. I believe in the platinum rule, which says, do unto others as others would have you do unto them. And in order, I know that not everybody wants to be treated the way I want to be treated. I know that young males don't want to be treated the way I want to be treated, nor do young females. I know that. In order for me to deal positively with another human being, I have to treat that person the way that person wants to be treated. And in order to know how they want to be treated, I have to ask them, I have to listen to the answer, and then I have to do what they ask. And as long as it isn't indecent or illegal, I'll do it. But that's not the golden rule, that's the platinum rule, which in fact was adopted from Chinese philosophy, and it didn't say, do unto others as you would have others do unto you. It said, do unto others as others would have you do unto them. But in order to do that, you have to communicate with them. But if you can practice the golden rule and pretend that what you're doing is golden rule-ish, then you don't have to talk to the people to whom you're behaving in this way, and with whom you're behaving in these ways. All you have to do is say, well, I'm a Christian, and I do unto others as I would have others do unto me. Well, how I want to be treated is not the point. How that other person wants to be treated is the point. But you see, if you do it that way, that takes all the power out of the golden rule. It's a really powerful thing to say, I'm treating you the way I want to be treated. Well, my daughter married a Saudi Arabian, and I learned quickly that her Saudi Arabian mother-in-law did not want to be treated the way I wanted to be treated. Make no mistake about that.
Wow. So I am currently taking some of these questions from our Facebook interactions. Paula Kelly asked, she said, first of all, she's seen your, she called it an experiment, but she's seen your work, and she wanted to say, as a white woman, she admires you. And she wonders whether or not any participants have come back and thanked you for putting them through.
Yes, they have. They have come back and said, thank you for what you did for our children. Their parents have. But the students themselves have come back to me and said, it changed the way I lived my life. You made me a different person than I would have been had I not gone through that exercise. So yes, that has, the reaction and responses from the students and the parents of the students who have been through that exercise have been almost like 98%, perhaps 99% positive. It was only the teachers who resented the attention I got as a result of doing the thing, and I shouldn't have gotten attention for doing it. That ought to be something that everybody does. Teach children that it's wrong to act in racist, sexist, ageist, homophobic, ethnocentric ways. That ought to be part of the curriculum. But it isn't. And because I did something strange and different and said it's wrong to be unfair to people just because of your ignorance about their skin color, that made me a pariah in my community and in my school. It was the teachers and the parents whose children had never been in my classroom who made the fuss. And that's only about 20% of the population of the community. But as several of them said to me later, parents said to me, I'm sorry I didn't stick up for you when that was going on. I said, I understand that. They said, I didn't want to be treated. I knew if I stuck up for you that I'd be treated the way you were being treated, and I didn't want that to happen to me or my children. And they were absolutely right. They had to protect themselves. And that's what they did. And I didn't need protection. Make no mistake about this. When people have threatened to kill me, I said, go ahead, fool. But if you do, you might make a martyr out of me, and then you might have to spend the rest of your life celebrating Jane Elliott Day once a year. You gotta rethink that.
I love her.
That shuts that threat down in a hurry.
I love her.
What about the people that, have you ever met anybody that was just a blatant racist who really didn't care about anything?
Every day.
You know,
Every day. Every day. Every day I meet those people. And every day I have to decide whether it's my responsibility. Every day I have to decide whether it's my responsibility to show them, and it's usually him, how ignorant he is. And sometimes I do, and sometimes I just say to myself, hey, that's his problem. Don't take it on.
Yeah, absolutely. What about others, Asians, African Americans, gays, lesbians, when they are
Engaged.
when they're interacting, do you see like a sense of pride or a sense of happiness that for once they are the privilege, that they are the ones with the blue eyes, or the brown eyes, they're the lucky ones? Like, have you ever had somebody say, thank you for putting me in a position of power, or at least allow me to feel?
Right. I'll never forget the man at, I think it was someplace in Ohio, where the guy said, for the first time in my life, I have always thought that white people were really strong. Look at the way they reacted to a few hours, a few minutes of this. I lived through this every day of my life. I didn't realize how strong I am. You put adult white people through the blue-eyed, brown-eyed exercise, and within 15 minutes, they are either swearing or crying or storming out of the room, many of them. And that says to the people of color in the room, and they say, look at that. I could have gone through what you were doing with both hands tied behind my back. It wouldn't have bothered me at all. But look at what's happening with these white folks. What's the matter with these white folks? And the fact is that what's the matter with us is we are ignorant about our effect on other people on a daily basis. And were we to be treated as we treat people of color in this country, white people could not take it. And that, in my estimation, is the number one fear in white people in this country today. We are scared to death that we are going to lose our numerical majority, and we are. Within probably less than 15 years, white people will no longer be in the numerical majority in this country. And that is the reason that we are attempting to limit those brown people coming across the border. We're going to build a wall, and it's going to be huge. And it's going to keep those people out unless we want to hire them to build our next building. And then we're going to bring them in, and then we're going to send them home after the building is put up. See, all this is, if you haven't read the book, The Birth Dearth, Birthdearth, by Ben Wattenberg, you need to get it and read it. Because if you do, you will understand the Right to Life movement, which is not about morality or religion or that poor little fetus. It's about increasing the number of white births, live births in this country every year. In his book,
what is the name of this book again?
The Birth Dearth. It means a lack of births. Birthdearth. The man who wrote it was an advisor to presidents of the United States. And in the book he says, first paragraph, the number one problem confronting this country today is that too few white babies are being born. If we do not fix this and do it quickly, this country will no longer be a white man's country. Now, white men have never been in the majority of this country. White people have, but not white men. The first one, he has several things to solve. He has several ways to solve it. But he says the third thing we can do is remember that 60% of the fetuses that are aborted every year are white. If we could keep that 60% alive, that would solve our birth dearth. Now, if you want to talk about right to life, it's right to white life. You want to talk about Planned Parenthood clinics? We don't riot in front of them in black districts or black sections of the community, or of the Asian community, or of the Native American community. We're perfectly happy to let those births not happen. But these white births have to be live births. Now, I know people are going to say she's a real fanatic. Read Ben Wattenberg's book and then accuse somebody of being fanatic. I think you may change the person that you're designating as fanatic after you read that book.
Wow.
And know that he gave advice to presidents of the United States, and then look back and see when the Right to Life movement started. And what man, everybody, so many people are so upset about killing like using the word uterus. But it doesn't bother them at all when men kill doctors who provide abortion services for women. Abortion is not a dirty word, but uterus is. Give me a break. Do I sound angry?
No.
No, you sound like me.
Well, then I'm okay. Because I've read the book. I'm okay. You're okay. You're okay. You're as much like me as you can be. The whole thing is the result of self-imposed ignorance.
Hello.
This information is out there. People could read the birth cert. People could read the myth of race. People could educate themselves. But if you're white, you know enough. For kids who are willing to start to meet, long story, never mind. Next question.
And then it will be the next slide. I definitely do have a question from Facebook. Whenever Kenyetta Hoskins, shout out to you, whenever Black people talk about reparations for slavery, it is immediately dismissed as decisive. Is it just taboo, or should we actually discuss this when it comes to the Jewish people, the Holocaust? You know, they received reparations. When it comes to the Japanese, they received reparations. The Native Americans still receive reparations. You know, how can racism end without reparations for African Americans when we went through the Jim Crow, we went through slavery, we went through all of these laws that prohibited us from having equal rights? We the people, we were never the people. So,
you know, the problem is you haven't gone through it. You are in it. Stop saying we went through. Reparations won't do you any good. If they gave you 40 acres and a mule, but had all the regulations to the point where you couldn't raise the mule without changing the laws, or the 40 acres were in the middle of the desert, those reparations wouldn't do you a damn bit of good. Until you change the situation that's going on in this country, reparations won't do you any good at all. If you think it would, look at the Native Americans. Wow. They're still on the res, and they're still being treated as less than equal human beings. Reparations haven't done them a bit of good, except to make white folks angry. White folks are angry until they go to those casinos on the reservation. And then they're very happy for a while until they leave. Shut, tired.
She's so crazy. I love her.
All a number of blacks have to do is get together and start building casinos all over the place. Except
casinos.
Wow. You find a black person, you find a Native American who is part black, and then you and he, or you and she, or you and they build a casino, and you get your reparations. But as long as we continue to treat people, as long as we continue to treat people as badly as we are treating blacks, particularly young black males in this country today, reparations won't do them a bit of good. Because once you get the money, it will be taxed to the point where it won't do you any good, and you still won't be allowed to buy a house in a decent neighborhood. Or to get a decent education. Or to get, if you want reparations, it says that the government furnished decent schools with good teachers in them for children of color, and decent water to drink. In Pennsylvania, is it Pennsylvania?
It's in Louisiana, it's in Flint, Michigan, it's in Ohio.
Yeah, Flint, Michigan, I'm sorry, Flint, Michigan. Yeah, the whole thing is ridiculous. Reparations won't do you any good as long as you aren't allowed to be treated like an equal human being in this country. The Constitution of the United States does not guarantee us equality. It does, however, guarantee us equitable treatment under the law. But you won't get the kind of treatment that white people get as long as all the legislators are white males who will legislate in a way that will not be equitable. And they are the ones who are making the law, and so you'll get the treatment they choose for you to have under their law. Get out and vote for people of color and gender who really know what's going on. And that means black and white men and women. Black, whatever color group you consider an intelligent group, that's the group you go for. But in this country, we have been taught that only white people, that color group, represents the smart, the wise, the all-knowing, the valuable color group. And it's just a color group. About 3 weeks ago, I talked to a group of 7th graders, 400 7th graders at one time. And I had no idea there were going to be 400. I thought there'd be 65, 400 7th graders. And I said, well, every person in this room who considers himself or herself a member of the white race, please stand. All those little white kids just bounced up to their feet, just so happy. I said, now you're all wrong, sit down. There is no such thing as a white race. There's only one race, it's the human race. There's no black race, there's no brown race, there's no red race, there's no yellow race. Those are all color groups. There's only one race, the human race. And I went on and did the rest of my thing. And then at the end of my remarks, I said, now, will every person in this room who considers himself or herself a member of the white race, please stand. Nobody stood. And then the kids of color particularly looked around and they started to applaud. And I did too. And then I said, now, will all the students in this room who consider themselves members of the human race, please stand. Every kid jumped up. And I said, now look around you. You're all members of the same race. Is this not wonderful? Have you learned something today? And they applauded. These are 7th graders who are supposed to be the rottenest kids in the school to deal with. You know, nobody wants to teach junior high. Nobody likes to teach junior high kids. They're just awful. Well, they aren't. They aren't just awful. They are just what the teacher expects them to be. And they will live down to or expect up to a teacher's expectations.
I'm still trying to find the
Gertzberg book. To find out that they didn't have to regard one another as superior or inferior according to the color of their skin because they're all members of the same race. The human race comes in many different color groups, but it does not come in more than one race.
Wow. So I have 2 last questions because we're running out of time. One of my questions is, how do we weed out from the school system the teachers that are teaching our children? Because there are, I have to admit, we have teachers that are excellent, that are doing their job, that are going above and beyond. But yet we do have those teachers that are tenured and don't feel like they have to do any more than what they've been doing since they've been tenured and getting a large sum paycheck, but not teaching our children. How do we weed these teachers out of our schools to make way for new teachers that are willing to teach our children?
You can't do it unless you make them uncomfortable being there. They're very comfortable. They've got the Teachers Association, they got the union to guarantee that they can't be fired for anything but, well, there are 3 things they could be fired for, and they can't remember what they are. I used to know what when I was a teacher. First, you have to turn them into educators. Teachers dispense facts and figures to kids so they can pass the standardized tests. That is not education. You have to encourage them to become educators instead of teachers. You have to put less emphasis on standardized testing and more emphasis on educating. You have to make them uncomfortable. You have to have parents who say, wait a minute, my kid isn't a bad kid. And the last teacher we had who said, he's wonderful, what's his problem with you? Evidently, you have a personality clash with my daughter or my son. You need to change your behaviors. My son does not have to become what he doesn't have to live down to your expectations of him. If you don't change your behaviors, and principals need to be able to say to teachers, I've had this many complaints about this situation. If this situation isn't changed in the next 5 weeks, you will be needing to look for a different job because I'll take that to mean that you don't want to behave in these prescribed ways. You have to have administrators who have the courage and the backing of the board and the backing of the superintendent who are willing to go into a teacher and say, here's the way it is. I've watched what you do. I've watched what's happening. If these behaviors, and you have to be specific, if these behaviors do not, this behavior I want to change in the next 6 weeks. Then I pick out another behavior. This behavior has to change in the next 6 weeks. If you want to continue to teach in this school, these things have to be changed, period. And a good administrator will do that. And a smart educator, a smart teacher, will change their behaviors if they want to keep that job. But they've got the union backing them. So everything has to be, you have to write it all down. It has to be in writing so that everybody can see this happened, this is the day on which it happened, this is how it was handled, this is what has happened as a result of my advising this person to do these things. This person hasn't done these things, therefore this person is saying to me, I do not want to teach you if I have to do these things. You have to have administrators who are willing to administrate, to be administrators. But many of them don't want to lose their jobs either.
Wow. What about
administrators are flag catchers. They are flag catchers, and you have to deliver the flag to them and then expect them to deal with the problem. That's what a principal is supposed to do. He isn't just supposed to count pennies, he's supposed to deal with the problems. Next question.
So would that be safe to say that parents that are currently listening, that are dissatisfied with their children's education, should put more pressure on the administrators and not necessarily the teacher that is ignoring them or has been ignoring their wants and needs?
You start with the teacher. You do it down the line. You start with the teacher. If you don't get satisfaction there, you go to the next person, if it's a consultant or a principal. If you don't get satisfaction there, you go to the superintendent. If you don't get satisfaction there, you go to the Board of Education. But you have to document the things that are happening to that child. You have to be with that child after school to hear what's happening. Then you have to call the teacher and say, did he give me an honest report of what happened in the classroom today? Do I need to come down there and talk to you about this? My son was having a hard time in 7th grade. And he was coming home in a really bad way. And I said, okay, girl, in 8th grade, I said, here, girl, I have to teach you today, but this math teacher was a mess. She was really a mess. I said, you go down to school and you tell the teacher that if she can't control Brian's behavior in the classroom, that you will come in and sit in the classroom and control Brian's behavior during that period. He was all right the rest of the day. But if she can't do that, then you can do that for her. And at the end of the month, you'll take part of her wages because you'll be doing part of her job. So he went to the principal and he went to the teacher, took the principal. He and the teacher went to the principal. And my husband told the principal that in front of the teacher. And the teacher's behavior changed and so did Brian's.
Wow.
If parents don't seem to care, then why should the teacher?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Shots
I'm so glad you said that.
Yeah, you need to make waves. If you don't make waves, then you can expect the situation to be perpetuated.
The squeaky wheel gets the oil.
That's right. The squeaky wheel gets the grease. Make no mistake about that. Now, they aren't going to like you, but they're going to treat your child fairly because if they don't, you're documenting their behaviors.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And some of the finest people I know are educators. Make no mistake about this. I have known some educators that you couldn't find a way to complain about them because they were so good for kids. But that's what they're there for, is to be good for kids. If they're there just because they don't have to work in the summertime, just because, and I've had male teachers especially say to me, "Oh, I went into teaching because I'd have 3 months off to play golf." And I think, well, and I know who's taking care of your balls.
She's so
I
crazy.
thought about golf balls. I don't know why you're finding that so easy.
Jane, you are such a mess. I don't know how they can call you names, Jane. You are absolutely amazing. Do you perform this exercise? We have a school here in Boston Latin School, who was just under fire because some of the students made racist comments on Twitter. And I would love to see if, BLS has a whole lot of schools. Maybe they need to go ahead and call Jane and teach these children that there's only one race.
Yeah, wouldn't that be nice if their teachers would teach the children that there's only one race? And wouldn't that be nice if the teachers would teach their children that love is a 4-letter word?
she about to go in.
But they know all the other 4-letter words. And if they can spell, if a kid can spell the F word on the toilet roll, on the toilet wall, then he could spell all those other CK words. And there are hundreds of them. But many of them can't, they spell it wrong, so then you have to teach them the CK rule. And most teachers don't know the CK rule, and they don't know the TCH rule, and that's too bad. In words of one syllable, in which the short vowel sound followed by the ch sound, the ch sound is spelled TCH, except in much, such, touch, rich, and which. Now just think about that. If a kid knows that rule, he can spell a couple hundred words right now. Right now, all he has to do is recognize short vowel sounds. Just that one rule, and the CK rule is the same thing. If we would just teach those kids those few little rules, we would turn them into spellers and readers in a few months' time. I know you can do it because I've done it, and I am not a superior teacher. I just have some information and some knowledge that every teacher should have, and would be so grateful if they could get it at the school's expense during school time. If somebody could just come in and teach these little elementary teachers how to teach this dyslexic child, those teachers would be successful for the rest of their lives, and so would their students. I'm all about success for everybody.
Jane, are you available to come and speak to some of these teachers? Is it possible that we could bring you to Boston Public Schools?
Sure, but they won't listen to me, and they won't hire me. Make no mistake about this. I charge $8,500 for spending a day on a campus, college, high school, or elementary school campus. Now, they'll spend $7,500 to have Kim Wise tell them about white privilege. But because white privilege is a nice subject. I would talk about white ignorance. That's not a popular subject. Make no mistake about this. Most of us have had teachers say to me, when I offered them the opportunity to have a speaker come in and talk to them about teaching dyslexic students, about what is going on fine, I have had teachers say to me, I have a degree, I already know enough. While a third of her kids, a third of the boys in her classroom were failing reading. I have a degree, I already know enough. And because of the ISEA and the NEA, you cannot force teachers to learn something after school. Even if it would make them better teachers and make their students better students, you can't force them to do it because there are rules. We're a union, and I believe wholeheartedly in unions. Make no mistake about that. But I think you can misuse a union, and a union can misuse its power. Should we get into that subject? I'm sorry, but sure, I'd love to come to Boston and talk to teachers, but they would be furious.
Well, I hope Mayor Marty Walsh is listening and Superintendent Chang is listening.
I hope y'all listening.
We're going to make some phone calls, right, parents?
Right.
Absolutely.
Well, the hair in the back of their necks is rising right now, and they're thinking, oh, how are we going to counter this? So some of them are immediately going to set about saying, we have special programs for our children with special needs, and we don't need Jane Elliott's advice as to how to run a school. And they're right, they don't. That's not what they need. They need to take a course in Orton's Lingo and Phonics, and then they'll realize that the coaches, who are also probably their social studies teachers at the junior and senior high school level, went into coaching because they were good in athletics, but couldn't succeed in academics. Many of them, I've talked with many of them who couldn't spell academics, but who got athletic scholarships and went into coaching. And then they teach social studies because that's easy, because all the material is right there for you, and the tests are all written. See, the whole thing is just a screen. Many of the administrators in Iowa used to be former coaches, which immediately, hits me in the face right now and say, oops, what? Wait a minute, how did that happen?
Absolutely.
I tried to write a paper on that for my master's degree, but my master's thesis, the head of the department said, you can't write that paper. I said, why not? He said, you don't seem to understand, because I wanted to analyze the correlation between dyslexic males and who are coaches and who become administrators, and what that effect that has on the schools. And he said, you can't do that. Why not? Because we want these superintendents to send their graduating seniors to this college. If they read that thesis, they won't send their graduating seniors here, because they will think that we don't like coaches and principals who have been coaches. So I couldn't write my thesis on that topic. I said, you know something? I don't think I need a master's degree. It's actually the system is run. Why in the world am I going to contribute to this system and remain in the system? I think I can be a good teacher without having a master's degree.
Jane Elliott, I thank you. I love you. I appreciate you. I have one more question. Where did you come up with this exercise?
I learned it from Adolf Hitler.
What?
One way they decided, yeah, hey, I was born the same year that Adolf Hitler and Franklin Roosevelt came to power in their countries. I think that was just an accident of the birth, but that's the way it was. And one of the ways they decided who went into the gas chamber was eye color. If you had a good German name, but you had brown eyes, they threw you into the gas chamber because they thought you might be a Jewish person who was trying to pass. And they killed hundreds of thousands of people on the basis of the color of their eyes alone. Now, if you don't believe me, read the book Mile 18. Or read the book, oh Lord, I can't remember the name of it, it's on the shelf at home, about the Nazi doctors. Read the book, The Nazi Doctors. Because one of the things that Joseph Mengele and company, the Nazi doctors, were engaged in doing was trying to find a way, either surgically or chemically, to change people's eye color, so that when they found a brilliant Jewish person with brown eyes, they could turn his or her eyes blue, and therefore make them members of the master race.
Do you hear that?
You think I'm making this up? Read the book, The Nazi Doctors. Or read the book, Mile 18. Or go to the Holocaust Memorial in Washington, D.C., and you will see there a picture on the wall of a nurse holding a piece of paper up to a child's eyes to show the progress that they are making in changing his eye color from brown to blue. It is enough to make you sick thinking of it. And they did it without benefit of anesthetic.
Wow.
I learned the exercise from the Nazis. We're practicing the exercise based on skin color in this country today, and it is like Nazism. It has to be stopped.
Jane, I thank you so much for your time. Is there any possibility that for March Women's Month we could get you in maybe the last week of the month?
Yeah, if you got the money, honey, you got the time. I'm sorry, but that's the way it is.
That's the way it is.
I was born in 1933. In fact, do the math. That makes me 82 years old. I don't have a whole lot of years left, or even maybe days after people hear this. I might not have hours. But I don't have a whole lot of years left to leave, make something to leave, an estate for my sons and daughters who have suffered greatly because of what I do for a living.
I can imagine.
They have been beaten and spit on. Their belongings have been destroyed. They have been abused physically, psychologically, mentally, and emotionally by their peers, by their teachers, and by the parents of their peers. So, as far as I'm concerned, they deserve to have something better out of my passing than what they've had during my being here.
Well, you know what, Jane? I think you're definitely before your time. And just like 100 years after Einstein discovered that space and time is something that we can observe and hear, I think years from now, people are going to realize, you know what, Jane was right. Jane was on to something.
But you see, people of color have known this far longer than I've been alive. But you also need to know that this racism crap has only been really important for the last 500 years, since the Spanish Inquisition. Before that, people were just people. But after that, they separated people. First, according to religion, as they tried to kill off the Jews, and then Native Americans, and then African Americans, and now Muslims. And then we did it with the Japanese and anybody who looked Asian during and after the Second World War. And now we're doing it with Muslims. And it's all stupid, and it's all ridiculous, and it's all the result of ignorance. But make no mistake about this, everything I know, I have learned from people who were called the others. because those of us who designate who are or are not others don't know it. We don't have to. We believe this nonsense, and it's nonsense. I'm not before my time. Every black person in this country is before their time. They know they have forgotten more since breakfast where racism is concerned than I will ever learn, because they cope with it on a daily basis in this country. Every person of color copes with this, whether or not they recognize it. It's what's going on. Some of them choose to pretend that it isn't happening. And then Joe Mike finds out that by the Lord, it is happening. Now it's happening to him. For sure.
You gave me a lot to think about. You gave me many pages to
I'm
read.
recording.
Is there anything else you want to give the listeners? And your website, any information, last word?
Yeah, go to my website and download the printed materials. The first is a set of typical statements that white folks make that think they aren't racist. Read through them, check those that you would agree with. Then read the next set, which is a set of clarifications of those statements, why you ought not to be making them, but how they are perceived and why you ought not to say them. Then the third thing is a set of commitments to combat racism. 18 things you can do in your own environment to deal with your own racism. And then download and read every item on the bibliography. There are books there that everybody should read, but before you do that, read The Birth Dearth and at least part of The Myth of Race. Educate yourself. Don't wait for somebody else to do it. And don't just say, well, it's white privilege and I didn't ask for it. It's not my fault. It's not white privilege. It's white ignorance. Get over it. There's a cure. You can't fix stupid, but there's a cure for ignorance, and it's called education. Why is that amusing to you?
Because I find you so amusing. I really do.
Well,
it's a whimsical amusement. Like you just, Jane, I love you. I love you so much, and I really hope to meet you in this lifetime.
But you see, you're one of my relatives, and I love you too. And I mean that sincerely. I mean that honestly and sincerely. I don't throw the word love about. And I don't throw the word hope about. Hope for me is an acronym for holding on to positive energy. And that's what I try to do. But when your kids are still called the sons and daughters of the nigger lover, it's hard to hold on to positive energy.
Wow.
Yeah.
I guess I didn't understand the ramifications of your work.
Oh, I didn't either the first time I did it, but I soon found out what they were. And an art teacher whose husband was the elementary principal told me, Jane, get your kids out of the school. These teachers are trying to destroy them. And they were. Because of what I do. I didn't stop doing it. I got my kids out of that school. And then they had no leverage at all, the teachers.
Please thank your children. I thank you because of everything that you've done, everything that you've endured, everything your children have endured. We have a tangible example of, we have an exercise where we can make people feel the way they make others. And I really wish that we could implement this in every state house across America. I wish we could implement this for all of the white politicians, all of Congress. I wish for a moment they felt that inferiority. Maybe then they would vote differently. Maybe then legislation would be different.
Maybe then people like the Tea Party folks wouldn't be allowed to elect members to the Senate and the House of Representatives who write ugly laws, like 3 strikes and you're out. And that was written before the Tea Party situation came on board. But the stuff that has been done since then is insane. What the Supreme Court has done in the last 4 years absolutely unacceptable behavior, except in a couple of cases. But this thing that makes a corporation of person is ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Anyway, that's all right. I appreciate you appreciating me, and I appreciate you more than I'll ever know about racism. And you are more tolerant than I will ever be, and I don't know how you do it. But thank you for listening to an old white woman for many, many minutes.
Thank you, Jane Elliott.
You're most welcome. Do call me again. If I should lose your job in the business. Okay. And if you lose your job, I would say, you can come out and live in my little guest house next to my house in Iowa. It's an old Baptist church that I finally got my hands on, and we turned it into a guest house. You are invited to be a guest there.
Oh my God, I'm so taking you up on that offer.
Well, all right. I'm so extending that offer, and I mean every word of it.
Absolutely.
And you can find pictures of it. You can find pictures of it if you go to Air D&B. And the picture of it on the top of the front page of the New York Times a week ago. There's my little guest house right there on the front page of the New York Times. And I just take a look at that last week because you're holding a caucus there, and there's a picture of where the caucus is going to be held. It's in my little guest house. Mine is a very strange life. I want you to know that.
Oh, I hope to grow up and be just like you, Jane. Full of life, knowledgeable of what's going on around me, and having the influence to change people's attitudes. I want to be just like you when I grow up.
And a thoroughgoing bitch.
Yes! And one more time, what is the acronym for?
Being in total control, honey. BITCH. Being in total control, honey.
Thank you, Jane. Thank you so much for your time.
You're most welcome.
Have a wonderful day.
All right, I'll see you at my guest house sometime this summer.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Goodbye then.
Bye-bye.
Yep, Tribe, baby, you know what it is? It's DJ Sus One, the feature presentation. Listen, make sure you wake up with Tayla Andre Monday through Friday, 5 to 7 a.m. on Big City 101.3 FM. Wake up with the Radio Rebel. Politics, news, conspiracies. Wake up your third eye with unorthodox conversations leading to universal consciousness. This is the type of stuff I'm into, all right? Make sure you tune in. Let's go.
This is the Champion Dial. Champion Dial.
Good rising. How are you? JaneElliott.com, and the remainder of, you can find the interview on Mixcloud. It's currently on Mixcloud, and it will be uploaded to YouTube within the next half hour. Okay. Thank you. Have a good day. Bye-bye. Can you hang that up, please? Thank you. Taco, can I call you when I leave here? Thank you. You too. I love you. I appreciate you. And I hope you guys have an awesome day. JaneElliott.com, or you could go back and listen to the show. Well, you guys just listen to the show, or you can listen on Mixcloud.